going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTP Sports. And after yesterday's terrible, and I mean terrible, feeling that was the Eagles and just whatever that was last night against the Chargers, Jalen Hurts, 5 turnovers, everything in turmoil with the Philadelphia Eagles currently. I did ask last night, and I guess we all prayed last night that during these winter meetings that the Phillies would do something just to make the fan base a little bit happy, just to bring a little bit of positivity into the Philadelphia sports scene just for a day or so or something like that. And they did do that today. And I guess you could say it's the worst kept secret in the world. I guess you could say at the end of the day, we all knew that this was most likely going to be the case, and that is the Phillies are bringing back Kyle Schwarber. Schwarbombs are staying in Philadelphia for another 5 seasons. Another 5 seasons. He gets a total contract of $150 million. That'll be $30 million a season for Kyle Schwarber for the next 5 years. So basically what, Kyle Schwarber, he'll be 33 next year, if I'm not mistaken. This contract will take him until he's 38. So basically Kyle Schwarber is a Philly for the rest of his career, barring anything else. And we all knew at the end of the day this was most likely going to happen. I know there were talks about, the Mets being involved, the Reds obviously, his hometown team being involved. I'm sure plenty of other teams were definitely in the mix in terms of talks for Kyle Schwarber and trying to bring Kyle Schwarber into their respected clubhouses and all that stuff. But I think we just knew that he was eventually coming back to the Phillies. I think that was the most likely outcome at the end of the day, because that would leave a glaring hole in the Phillies lineup, especially a glaring spot in the power department for the Phillies, because you're definitely just not going to instantly replace, 40, 50 home run power in that lineup with Kyle Schwarber. And his bat does seem to be getting year after year after year. The home run totals keep going up, and especially, I guess you can also put the case out there with him just being a DH, most likely that, there's not going to be as much wear and tear on his body, just focusing on batting. The bat speed's always there. Really don't see much decline from him right now being a DH, so I still think this is a good contract for the Phillies. I know some people will, scoff at giving $30 million a year to a DH. But I think at this point you just had to if you're the Phillies. And it also shows that the Phillies were not just going to let him walk for nothing. So that does make sense. I'm fine with the deal. I'm happy with the deal for Kyle Schwarber. But I can also play both sides of this entire thing too, because thinking about, bringing in Kyle Schwarber, it's another guy making $30+ million a season. A lot of guys on this roster are making a lot of money, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, is John Middleton going to have a limit this offseason now that he brought in Kyle Schwarber? There's still a lot of other areas to address, obviously. Whether they're going to bring back JT Realmuto or not. Ranger Suarez is still a free agent, even though I don't think they're going to bring back Ranger Suarez. I think he's going to walk, and I think he's going to go somewhere else. So I think that's the case. So you'll have another spot to address in the starting rotation. Bullpen's always a spot that they need to address. And they still need to address aspects in this lineup because, Preston Mattingly goes on a podcast yesterday talking about how they're looking to trade Nick Castellanos and all that stuff. There's always the ever-growing rumors about Alec Boehm possibly being traded. The Phillies are tied to rumors about Ketel Marte and all that stuff. They're apparently tied to a lot of the stuff with the Japanese pitcher Tatsuya Imai coming over from Japan. Top, pitcher from Japan coming over, just being posted. The Phillies are apparently all over that. They've been trying to get a guy from Japan over the past couple of years. One of these, big-time names coming over from Japan over the past few years. They paid the most money for Yamamoto. He chose the Dodgers, and there's a lot of talk about this Amai guy, how he doesn't want to go to the Dodgers. He doesn't want to go to a team that already has established Japanese players. He wants to go on a team that has the ability to take down the Los Angeles Dodgers, so that definitely is going to eat up a lot of people right there. That'll definitely be very interesting, because I can also throw the argument about going after somebody like Amai for the starting rotation. And people will bring up why would you pay another starting pitcher that much money when you already have guys like, a Zach Wheeler, when you have a Christopher Sanchez and all that stuff. I think the main argument that you could throw the, paying Amai and all that stuff is because next year with Zach Wheeler, we don't know when he's going to start the season. I'm sure he's going to be around spring training, but we really don't know when he's going to be full back in the major league action, coming off of the blood clot and the surgery and everything like that. And we just don't know what Zach Wheeler is going to look like in general, just from a performance standpoint. Whether he's just going to snap right back to being, ace caliber, Cy Young caliber Zach Wheeler, or there's going to be a little bit of a tick down from Zach Wheeler, and maybe his stuff isn't the same as it used to be. But, modern medicine is, always advancing these days. Athletes, they're finding new ways to heal and all that stuff. So maybe there's a good chance for Zach Wheeler to return to the form that he once was. But it's basically a play by ear at that point. And I can understand if you go out and sign the Japanese pitcher to bolster the rotation, it probably lessens the pressure on Wheeler to return back to the form that he once was, instantly, that you add another person to the top 3 of your rotation to pair along with Christopher Sanchez, who was an absolute dog last season and probably will continue to be a dog, especially on that very team-friendly contract. You also have Jesus Luzardo that's still going to be in the rotation. He proved that he can step up in the postseason when the brights are shining bright down there. He could be a good, middle to back end of the rotation type of guy. Aaron Nola's always going to be there. I'm sure they're going to figure out something to do with Taijuan Walker, whether he's just going to be on the roster for this year in the final year of his contract, or they're just going to find a way to move him. I'm not entirely sure. I know there's going to be all the talk about Andrew Painter and all that stuff, blah, 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 blah. So I wouldn't... I would actually like to go after the Japanese pitcher, because you can never have too much talent in your starting rotation. Because I just think if you let Ranger Suarez walk, I do think there is a glaring hole, because you don't know what version of Aaron Nola you're going to get next year. And you can't rely on Taijuan Walker. And is Andrew Painter going to be ready enough to be in the starting rotation next season? I have no idea. And like I said, the big question mark, same thing with Zach Wheeler coming off the blood clot. There's a lot of question marks there. There definitely is. So they definitely still have a lot of more work to do. They really, 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 really do. But this is definitely a good start by, giving Kyle Schwarber what he deserves. And obviously, it was going to be very hard to replace 40, 50 home runs. I know there's a lot of guys out there, like a Kyle Tucker's out there, but he's not a 40, 50 home run type of guy, but he's still a very good player in Major League Baseball. There's definitely people out there, Harrison Bader is still out there, so I'm not sure if the Phillies are going to try to bring Harrison Bader back, but then you're going to get into that discussion about, running it back and all that stuff, and that's warranted. Obviously, it's a warranted discussion, because basically you're bringing back this. If you sign Kyle Schwarber, you re-sign JT Realmuto, it's going to be the same discussion. It's going to be the same, running it back with the same basically core of players, and, it's a very warranted topic, because, basically you are bringing back Schwarber. You most likely will bring back JT Realmuto. You most likely will be running it back, because the core is still the same. It's still Bryce Harper. It's still Trey Turner. It's still Kyle Schwarber. It's still Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, possibly JT Realmuto. There just probably will be a little bit of a foundational change with Nick Castellanos most likely not going to be here next season. I'm sure there's going to be a different spot with left field. I'm not sure what they're going to be doing with the Brandon Marsh situation. Is Justin Crawford going to be in the lineup next year? Is he going to be on the roster next season? I have no idea. Is Harrison Bader going to be back? I have no idea. Are the Phillies going to be active in the trade market, like rumors are tying them with the Ketel Marte? So that's a second baseman. So is Bryson Stott not going to be here? Is Alec Boehm not going to be here? So mainly your major faces of the core are still going to be here, but those other foundational pieces might be different, if that makes sense. So your Harpers, your Turners, your Schwarbers, your JT might still be here. Your Wheelers will still be here. Your Nolas will still be here and all that stuff. But the other guys, the Bohms, the Stotts, the Marshes, the Castellanoses of the world, those guys most likely will be different, and whatever they do, make changes into the bullpen and whatnot. I know there's been rumors around Matt Strahm possibly gaining interest from trades and whatnot and all that stuff, so that definitely is an intriguing thing right there. There was also a rumor coming out earlier today as well. This is from like a Nationals, I guess, Twitter account or something like that. It's from a Twitter account called Talking Nats. I guess they cover everything from the Nationals and all that stuff, and they're saying sources tell me that the Phillies have contacted the Nationals about Mackenzie Gore, so that definitely would be intriguing. It definitely would clarify as like another Jesus Luzardo type of thing, where a guy that has immense potential as a starting pitcher, and he has showcased that potential as a starting pitcher, and that bolsters the rotation, adding another left-hander to the rotation, to where, you have another high potential, high ceiling type of guy, because it's the guy that does strike out a lot of guys, and he has shown that potential with the Washington Nationals, especially last year. So that definitely would be an intriguing thing if you do go out and get a Mackenzie Gore. Um, yeah, there's definitely a lot of things here. There's definitely a lot of things that they could do. But yeah, getting Kyle Schwarber back definitely was one of the main topics, the main, checkpoints on the checklist for this offseason. You had to bring back Kyle Schwarber. And I wasn't expecting Kyle Schwarber to go anywhere else. He wasn't signing somewhere like Cincinnati. Even though that was his hometown, he wasn't going to go sign there. He wasn't going to go sign with the New York Mets and all that stuff. And speaking of the New York Mets, Edwin Diaz going to the Los Angeles Dodgers. So the Mets, they did get Devin Williams a couple of days ago, but now they basically lose the best closer in baseball to the Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Dodgers just continue to get stronger and stronger, because we all know how much bullpen was their quote-unquote weakness last year. Now they just got one of the best closers in baseball to bend the back end of that bullpen. So obviously the Dodgers are still always going to be a threat, and they're always going to be the favorite right now. Maybe that's why you go out and get somebody like Amai, because he wants to be a guy that takes down the Dodgers. Just saying. Just saying. But yeah, it's always going to be the same topics around this Phillies team going into the season, because when are the bats going to go cold? When are they going to be able to step in the playoffs? They're going to be a team that wins probably around 90-plus games. They're going to be a playoff contender and all that stuff. They're going to make the playoffs and all that stuff. They're going to be a contender for the division, blah, 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 blah. It really is just going to come down to playoffs. That's really just going to – what are you going to look like in the playoffs? What are you going to do in the playoffs? Is the offense going to go cold at the wrong time? That's basically it. The starting rotation can step up in the playoffs. They showed that last year against the Dodgers. You saw Christopher Sanchez. You saw Ranger Suarez. You saw Jesus Luzardo. You saw, Aaron Nola for 2 innings. Zach Wheeler, when he's fully healthy, hopefully he comes to the Zach Wheeler form that we all know he could be. He's going to dominate in the playoffs like he normally does. So that's really not the part that you're fully worried about. It's going to be the offense. It's going to be the bullpen. How are you going to bolster up the bullpen behind Johan Duran? Because he's most likely the de facto closer. How are you going to bolster that? There's a lot of question marks. There's definitely a lot of question marks. So we got to wait and see. In terms of going back to the main roster and all that stuff, is Justin Crawford going to fight for a roster spot? Is Aiden Miller going to fight for a roster spot? That just goes into the discussions with Alec Boehm, with the Bryson Stotts, with the Brandon Marshes of the world. Are those guys going to be on the team next year? Are they going to shake up the quote-unquote daycare now? Even though at this point they're not even a daycare. These guys are basically just as old as me, almost 30, like between 27 and 30 years old at this rate. They're not a daycare anymore. They're not young kids in Major League Baseball. So there definitely is a difference right there. There definitely is a major difference. So there's definitely going to be, we'll see. And actually, there's more news from Ken Rosenthal. He actually just posted it on The Athletic, so I might as well bring it up. And apparently he says the Orioles matched the offer for Kyle Schwarber. So I think Kyle just wanted to come back to Philly. I think that was just the main goal right there. That makes a load of sense. But I do want to see this article right here from Ken Rosenthal. So he says, Baltimore Orioles' failure to land Kyle Schwarber wasn't for a lack of trying, and their proposal to the free agent designated hitter signaled how serious they are about spending this offseason. Orioles offer Schwarber the same 5-year, $150 million contract he agreed to Tuesday with the Philadelphia Phillies, according to people briefed on the negotiations. The Reds also offered Schwarber 5 years, but their proposal was in the $125 million range with room to grow. Apparently, the Pittsburgh Pirates were also involved at 4 years and $120 million. The amounts of any other offer Schwarber received are not known. Schwarber, who turns 33 in March, was always expected to return to Philadelphia, but the Orioles' push essentially forced the Phillies to offer the same terms, one source said. The Orioles have been involved in discussions, okay, blah, 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 talking about Orioles and basically all that stuff, but that definitely is interesting. That definitely is interesting. That it's very shocking that a team like the Pittsburgh Pirates were trying to go out and spend money, something that you never expected in the world. I wonder though. I'm like this also goes off in the back of my mind that do you think some of these other teams that typically don't spend a lot that they're trying to spend a lot right now just because there is a glaring lockout coming most likely. And I don't know, does the lockout already like veto a year off the contract or something like that? Is that why some of these teams probably are more willing to spend right now? Some of these owners that don't typically spend, maybe they're more willing to spend just because of a glaring lockout. I have no idea. That's just something that's more barroom conversation and all that stuff, but it definitely is interesting. It's very interesting to think about, though. But let's see. Is there anything else? You know, obviously with the Edwin Diaz news with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Oh yeah, the Phillies also extended Rob Thompson through 2027. There's also talks about, you know, basically with Don Mattingly and all that stuff, it's basically not if, it's a matter of when the Phillies are going to bring him in as a bench coach. And I do like that option. It definitely, it's more of a, you know, a guy that's in there with a veteran that has a lot of managerial experience in Major League Baseball. It's more of a, you know, if Rob Thompson does get fired, it's a guy that's in there that can instantly come in and replace Rob Thompson. That's basically it. That's basically it. And there's a lot of people that would like the move of you know, of a Don Mattingly, so I wouldn't be shocked in whatsoever. It does make sense because his son's also the GM of the Phillies, so that does make sense at the end of the day as well. You know, there's always been a lot of talk about the running it back thing, too, with Dave Dombrowski. I believe brought that up a couple of days ago when he was talking during the winter meetings. Rob Thompson also was talking today as well, and same thing about, like, you know, running it back because they don't like the phrase running it back because blah, 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 blah. There's always going to be changes that you make on a year-to-year basis, blah, 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 blah. But it's still a very warranted discussion with the whole run it back thing. I think it's a very warranted discussion in my personal opinion. But, you know, it was very, very important that they got a guy like Kyle Schwarber, but this team still needs to, they still need to, they got to make more moves. I'm not sure if more moves are going to go down at the winter meetings with the Phillies, you know, specifically. You know, I think there's still a few days left in the winter meetings. They started on Sunday. The winter meetings are usually lasting like 4 to 5 days, so this is like day 3, I believe, of the winter meetings. So most likely tomorrow will be the last day, and then the rest of the off season will pursue. But yeah, it definitely will be a very interesting thing to see where everything goes. So that definitely will be. Well, it's basically a wait and see process. I'm not sure what else they're going to do, so you don't know. You really don't know. What else is there? What else is there? Trying to see if there's just anything that pops up on the Twitterverse from, if there's anything about baseball and all that stuff, about anything. Here we go. There's somebody from, I think this is a fake baseball reporter, if I'm not sure, but this person is saying Michael Marino. Sources, last night the Mets submitted an offer of 3 years, $120 million for Kyle Schwarber. It is unclear if this was their final offer. Interesting. And then there's a tweet right here from another Mets person, Mike Puma, about Edwin Diaz. 2 other factors that didn't help the Mets in trying to retain Edwin Diaz. Diaz's brother Alexis was with the Dodgers last season and spoke glowingly about the staff and infrastructure. Also, Diaz was less than thrilled the Mets dumped their pitching coach, Jeremy Hefner. Interesting. Their final offer for Edwin Diaz was 3 years, $66 million. I think he got 3 years, $69 million with the Dodgers. Interesting. And of course, there's always going to be a lot of talks this year, like where are the Tigers going to trade Tarek Skubal to? Of course, now there's a bunch of rumors about him with the Dodgers, and, you know, possibly being traded to the Dodgers. Like, Jesus Christ, that'll blow up. That'll blow up Major League Baseball fandom. Holy shit. It's crazy. I'm not sure. And obviously now with the whole Pete Alonso thing, like, where is Pete Alonso going to go? Not entirely sure. This is from Joel Sherman of the New York Post. With Schwarber back with the Phillies, the dam will break on position player movement now. One to watch, Diamondbacks move-in player Ketel Marte. Interesting. And the Phillies obviously have been heavily rumored about Ketel Marte as well, so we'll wait and see where that goes. But it definitely is an intriguing thing. I want to see if there's just any more rumors too. So that was Joel Sherman. Is there anything else that comes out here? Nope, that's still about Kyle Schwarber. I wonder if we'll get more news as the day goes on. the day goes along. I'm not entirely sure. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Interesting. Interesting. Cody Bellinger's obviously still out there. Kyle Tucker's obviously Kyle Tucker's probably gonna be one of the last people to sign. Who knows? What else is there? Obviously, no. I wonder if they do go after a guy like Ketel Marte, because there was also a talk about with Dave Dombrowski the other day. Like, people were pointing out that Dave didn't, like, he mentioned guys like Brandon Marsh, Alec Bowman, all that stuff, and how people are going to improve next year. But people pointed out that he didn't talk about Bryson Stott. So and made people start to wonder, oh, is Bryson Stott out the door? Could Bryson Stott, Ketel Marte, Phillies are rumored around with Ketel Marte and all that stuff. He's a second baseman. Dave Dombrowski didn't mention Bryson Stott as a player for improvement next season. Could Bryson Stott be out the door and possibly in a trade for a Ketel Marte? I'm not entirely sure. I have no idea. It's a wait-and-see process. But yeah, Ketel Marte definitely would be a major improvement to this roster. Second baseman, he's a switch hitter, provides pop from both sides, very good hitter. I know there's a lot of concerns about his clubhouse and his, mannerisms in the clubhouse, attitude and all that stuff, but still, it's talent. And I think the Phillies just need talent. They need more talent in this lineup, especially pure hitting talent. I would love to get a guy like Ketel Marte. That would be a major boost to this lineup. Would be a major boost to this lineup. I think in terms of rumors, I don't think there's anything else in terms of that right now. We'll obviously get more rumors as the days go along, so we'll see there. We do have a caller voicemail here from Sean, so we will get to that, and we'll see where things go. I do see Austin in the chat right here, so we'll get to what Austin is talking about as well. Definitely not as lively as we were last night with the Eagles game, but that's the way things go a little bit here. So let's go to Sean. Let's see what Sean has to say about the Phillies bringing back Kyle Schwarber.
So Schwarbombs remain in Philly. I'm not surprised. I knew he wasn't going to the Pirates, of course. The Reds were a little bit of a concern to me, but not really. But I really don't know how to feel about this overall. I like Kyle Schwarber. I like the player. And I still think even later on in this contract, he can still put up big numbers. But my question is, again, does this stop the Phillies from making other moves? The last thing I want is for them to be forced to run it back. And it seems like that might be yet again the direction that we have to go down. Does it take them out of the market for the Japanese pitcher, the Japanese third baseman? Can they add another big name like a Ketel Marte? Can they trade Alec Bohm for something of value? If Justin Crawford is going to be your only new addition next year in 26, why are we really wasting our time here? Schwarber's going to hit his 40 to 50 homers, but the Phillies aren't any closer to winning a World Series.
Oh, yeah, that's very, very warranted concerns. Those are obviously concerns that I brought up because, John Middleton, he is willing to spend money. He's very limited, though, in the way that he wants to spend his money. He doesn't want to go over certain thresholds and all that stuff. And especially if you have so many other guys on this roster that are making a lot of money, is John Middleton going to be very limited in the way that he is spending? Is this going to take the Phillies, out of a running for a possible guy like Amai? Is this going to take them out of a possible trade for a guy like Ketel Marte? What's Ketel Marte's contract, actually, with the Diamondbacks? What is his contract? Not stats. Not stats, Google. I want to look at contract. Contract. He signed a 6-year, $116.5 million contract. He's getting paid $16 million a season until he's 37. Well, yeah, I would gladly take that. He's being paid for this season. He'll be paid $16 million on the salary. Next year, 12, 2028, $20 million, $22 million, $22 million. So the number will go up a little bit as he gets older, but still, I'd gladly take that. Does this take them out of the running for certain things? I'm not entirely sure, because how much is JT Realmuto going to want? How much are they going to be willing to spend for JT, and what's the term going to be like for JT? That's very, very warranted concerns. If John Middleton is serious about getting a World Series trophy, he shouldn't be having limits. But I feel like he does have limits, and he only wants to spend to a certain extent, because we all know how John Middleton is worried about, 5-10 years down the line when he still has to he still has to field a Major League Baseball team, try to get people in the stands. We all know where John Middleton is worried about that from a money standpoint, why he's so afraid to trade prospects and all that stuff. But if you really want to win a World Series, you got to take these risks. You got to do things that are going to be painful. And this offseason is going to be very telling about what they want to do, whether they're just completely running it back once again and it's just going to be the same crap, or they're willing to get uncomfortable and make changes that they need to make. Whether that's moving off guys like, we already know they're going to move off Castellanos. That's good. That's a given. He's not going to be back next year. Are they going to move off of a guy like Bohm or a Stott or something like that? They got to get uncomfortable. They got to get uncomfortable. That's their problem. They really need to get uncomfortable, and I'm not sure if John Middleton's willing to get uncomfortable. Just in my personal opinion. But we'll see. We'll see. There's plenty of other time left. They got a major guy here in Schwarber, and it definitely was going to be very difficult to replace him. 40, 50 home run power and all that stuff. It's very crucial to this lineup, and I do agree with him only being a DH. I don't see much decline in his bat just because he's not really playing the outfield at all. So I don't see much decline there from a Schwarber standpoint and from a power standpoint from Kyle Schwarber. It's just to the fact that, is this going to limit John Middleton? Is this going to limit the Phillies' capabilities of doing anything just because John Middleton does have a limit in what he wants to do? So, we'll see. I know there's a lot of rumors about them with the Japanese pitcher. I know there's a lot of rumors about them with Ketel Marte. I know there's, they're always going to be tied with JT Realmuto. I'm sure they're going to bring back JT, I think. And we'll see. But, yeah. Let's get to the live chat here. See if there's anything else, and we'll go on from there. Austin, I don't know how to feel about this. I defer to his postseason performance. Star Wars now for JT. What else? Austin says perhaps we can shop him around at the trade deadline at 26 or 27 to equip another outfielder or two. Who are you talking about specifically with that? Not entirely sure. Not confident in his ability to age with grace. I think we'll all be regretting this by year 3. Interesting. I would prefer to spend money on Ranger and Bader. I think the one thing to talk about with Ranger Suarez and being afraid to sign him to a contract is just at the fact that Ranger Suarez in his career has not pitched over 160 innings in his entire career. That's the thing that I think people should be afraid with when signing Ranger Suarez. It's not the fact that he can't perform in the postseason. It's just for the fact that the best availability is availability. Well, the best ability is availability with a pitcher. And Ranger Suarez, granted this year, he pitched in 26 games. He was 12-8 with a 3.2 ERA. Not a bad season whatsoever. It was a very good season for Ranger Suarez. Pitched the most innings in his entire career, 157 in the third innings. Last year, 150 in 2/3 innings. But once again, it's just going to be the glaring, topic is he going to be able to stay upright for an entire season? I think that's just the biggest question mark with Ranger Suarez. And granted, he's going to be 30 this year. So maybe there's also a little bit of concerns around there. Maybe that's why they want to lean into a different area of the starting rotation by getting younger in the starting rotation. Because if you do go after the Japanese pitcher, he is 27 years old. He's like 28 years old, so he is younger. Or if they are rumored to go after a guy like Mackenzie Gore is young too. I believe Mackenzie Gore, he's 26 years old. So if you go that route, definitely would make sense. So I think there's those topics to talk about with Ranger Suarez. I think that's I would like to bring back Ranger, obviously, but I just don't think they're willing to. This also basically cements Kevin Long as a Philly mainstay coach. Don't expect it. Oh, yeah. Kevin Long ain't going anywhere. I could be a negative Naxi because it's understandable. Wheeler is the one guy on the team I could actually see it improving from last year. Interesting. I could see Painter Walker having backpack starts. They usually give the new guys a short leash. Walker, it wasn't horrible last year, so maybe there's a chance he could be a middle inning reliever again. Who knows? My ideal lineup is Bader, Turner, Harper, Schwarber, and fill in the rest. I put Kyle in the cleanup because I got tired of seeing him clog up the bases and prevent extra bases from others. The bullpen absolutely needs to lock in. They will have one of the best starting lineups, even with the Wheeler returns. I do not want to see guys wander out there and give up multiple run leads. Oh, yeah. Think Rob should really consider forcing the pen to operate on demon time and then give them extra rest. These 3 and 4 day stretches where they give up 6 runs in 4 innings suck. I prefer no more than 2 consecutive days. Okay, so blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of things I could offer as an armchair coach. I could see that. I could definitely see that. I don't want another year of no energy, no fight, no life from the manager. Go out there and bark. To Sean's point, I knew they were going to run it back when no coaches were fired after 4 straight goose eggs in October. Yeah. John Middleton might secretly be content with the current situation. It's way more profitable than a perpetual safe playoff team than take risks with going all out on a core shakeup. Yeah. When the owners all get together, the last thing they'll talk about is a World Series bragging rights. I guarantee you green is the game just as it is on. Oh yeah. Middleton cares about his money. Like I said, he always talks about how he's worried about 10 years down the line, 5-10 years down the line when he still has to put a team on the field. He's worried about people being in seats. He wants to make his money. And granted, yeah, I'm not saying he shouldn't be worried about that. It's just, it's definitely glaring when you're trying to build a World Series team. When teams like people like the Dodgers are literally spending as much money as possible and they just don't give a shit. So yeah, definitely is a glaring thing right there. But I think that'll do it for today, everybody. In terms of a Flyers recap, we'll get some Flyers tonight after their game tonight against the San Jose Sharks. So definitely a play-by-ear type of thing there. Maybe we could do some things tomorrow in terms of like just a regular hangout stream or something like that. Because like I said, I was not doing much last week in terms of streams just because of how busy I was with editing. But I'll try to get some stuff out here for you guys. If there's more news to talk about. And hey, why not? But yeah, it's a play-by-ear thing. So you'll see something pop up in your subscription feed. You can join it. So I do appreciate everybody for tuning in as always. Don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It does me a great deal of service. And also use the code TTPSPORTS, $20 off your first purchase at SEATGEEK. Great deal. Don't pass it up. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Phillies got the one move they needed to do. And they gotta do more. Gotta do more. So we'll see. Appreciate y'all for tuning in.